The flatlines began at hour 22, station time, as they always did. I had been watching Station Ardennes 7 for 18 months from survey platform Carath-Ullin, and in all that time the event had never varied by more than 4 minutes. At 22:07, the first biosignature dropped. By 22:11, all 340 of them were down. I remember the first night it happened. I was running a standard metabolic suite when the telemetry array lit up in a way I had only seen in mass casualty reports. 340 human biosignatures, dropping in sequence, each one collapsing through the same cascade, motor activity to 0, voluntary respiration slowing to 8 cycles per minute, cortical output falling off the bottom of the scale. Not death, not quite, not by the numbers I had, but nothing in my training called it anything else. I opened a priority channel to Division Command and reported a possible catastrophic event aboard the station. They told me to keep watching and file a full report by morning. By morning, all 340 of them were awake. I filed the report. It said, unknown mass event, self-resolving, duration approximately 7 hours, no casualties, no apparent cause. Division Command acknowledged it and told me to continue monitoring. I continued monitoring. The event happened again the following night, at 22:09. And the night after that. And every night for the next 542 nights. At some point I stopped flagging it as an event. I started logging it as a cycle. That distinction bothered me more than I wanted to admit, so on the 430th night I pulled the full archive on human biosignature norms and started running the flatline event against every documented death state and near-death state in the Cathani Survey Registry. The registry holds records for 914 catalogued species. I had access to every coma classification, every hibernation protocol, every toxin cascade, every documented form of induced or spontaneous neural arrest the division had ever logged. The search returned 17 partial matches. I worked through them in order. The Serra-T force stasis response, involuntary, triggered by atmospheric pressure collapse, duration 8 to 40 hours, recovery rate 11%. The humans event was voluntary, I could see that from the sequencing. They went down one by one, each biosignature dropping in its own time across a 4-minute window, not all at once the way a pressure event would take them. And their recovery rate was, as far as I could document, 100%. The Morvain hibernation cycle, voluntary, triggered by caloric deficit, duration 40 to 90 days, entered twice per year at most. The humans event lasted 7 to 9 hours and occurred nightly. Nightly. I had to check my own log 3 times before I trusted that word. 340 times in the monitoring period. Every one of those nights, the station's entire biological complement entered a state that the Morvain hibernation classification described as neurologically equivalent to deep coma, and every one of those mornings they emerged from it and went back to work. The Verith deep hibernation coma was the closest match in the archive. Physiologically, the cortical suppression profiles were nearly identical, the same slow wave pattern, the same reduction in metabolic demand, the same apparent suspension of higher cognitive function. The Verith entered it once in their lifespan, at the end of their productive years, as a preparation for terminal decline. Fewer than 3% survived it. Those who did emerged with significant neurological impairment, disoriented and unable to resume prior function for months. I sat with that comparison for a long time. The humans were doing this every night. 340 of them, in a classified research station, doing the work of a classified research station, running experiments, maintaining equipment, filing reports, eating meals, having arguments in the corridors, and then at 22:07 they lay down in their quarters and died, by every metric I had, for 7 hours, and then they got up and did it again. I started watching the recovery phase more carefully. The waking was as organized as the descent. Not all at once, but in sequence, each signal climbing back through the same cascade in reverse, cortical output rising, respiration normalizing, motor activity resuming. I could track individual humans across multiple nights and see the pattern, the same person, the same approximate wake time, the same sequence of recovery milestones. It was not random. It was not pathological. Whatever this was, the humans had optimized it. On the 462nd night, I watched one of the station's senior researchers enter the flatline state at 22:03. She was one of the earliest to go down each night, and one of the later ones to wake. By my telemetry, her cortical output at the depth of the event was lower than anything I had on file for a conscious organism. Lower, in fact, than several of my on-file readings for organisms that had been confirmed dead. And at 6:14 she woke up, and 40 minutes later she was in the station's primary lab, running assays. I pulled her productivity metrics for the month. Output nominal. Error rate below the station average. She had entered what my archive classified as fatal range neural suppression 342 times in the monitoring period and was, by every measure I could access, functioning at full capacity. I wrote a note in the margin of my log that said, "The archive does not have a category for this." Then I deleted it, because I did not want to explain to Division Command why I was writing notes in my log margins after 18 months of a posting. On the 491st night, one of the humans broke the pattern. A junior technician, biosignature 7 in my log, which I had started cross-referencing with the station manifest by then, went down at 22:03 as usual, but her cortical output kept dropping past the standard floor and held there for 11 hours instead of 7. No alarm from the station. No intervention from the medical staff. At 9:14 she woke, walked to the commissary, and ate a meal. I checked her output for the rest of the day. Indistinguishable from baseline. I looked up the human term for what she had done. The registry had a partial entry, extended duration event, apparently voluntary, apparently normal, noted as a response to accumulated fatigue. The humans called it sleeping in. It was cross-referenced with no alert protocol of any kind. On the 519th night, I watched the event begin and I did not file a preliminary alert. I watched all 340 signatures drop. I noted the time, 22:08, within the standard window. I noted the depth, consistent with prior events. And then I sat at my console for 7 hours and watched the telemetry, because somewhere in the last year and a half I had developed the habit of staying up through the flatline window, and I was not entirely sure when that had started. At 5:51 the first signal began to climb. By 7:20, all 340 were back. I opened the amended threat assessment I had been drafting for 6 weeks and I looked at what I had written. The humans aboard Station Ardennes 7 had no known physiological vulnerability to the flatline event. They entered it on a voluntary, scheduled basis. They exited it without assistance. The event appeared to serve a restorative function. Their performance metrics showed no degradation across 542 cycles. The event showed no signs of cessation. I sat there for a while, looking at that last line. Every other species in the archive that entered coma-class neural arrest did so as a last resort, a response to crisis, a preparation for death, or an act of desperation. Every one of them required either environmental triggers, chemical induction, or medical intervention to enter the state safely. None of them did it nightly. None of them did it voluntarily. None of them built functioning research stations and ran classified science programs in between. The humans were doing all of it. Every day. 340 times. I thought about what that meant for the ones I was not watching. The ones running the civilian infrastructure, the ones staffing the transit corridors, the ones in whatever the humans called the offices where they made decisions about things like survey platforms and analyst postings. All of them, presumably, doing the same thing. Every night. For their entire lives. I filed the amended threat assessment at 8 o'clock, station time, before the day shift on Ardennes 7 had fully materialized at their posts. The document ran to 12 pages. The summary line read, "The human species enters a state of voluntary, cyclic, coma-class neural arrest on a nightly basis, self-terminates the state without assistance, and experiences no functional impairment as a result. This cycle has been documented across the full biological complement of station Ardennes 7 for a continuous period of 542 days without interruption, deviation, or casualty. No equivalent behavior exists in the survey registry for any catalogued species. Reclassification of human biosignature norms is recommended pending division review. I did not include the note I had written in the margin. The one that said, "I have been awake watching them sleep for 18 months, and I am beginning to think the concerning thing is not the dying." I kept that one for myself.